Hey guys, how are we doing? This is a playback and narrative of my 3K takedown, which I've been playing for a while. First time I took it down, as you can see, here's the places. First is 2300, fifth is 531. Go ahead and get started. I just made the final table in this video. I've been mostly push or fold up until this point. Nothing's major is happening. I'm not having to gamble. A couple lucky hands in the early stages of the tournament. But I get to the final table and got a pretty good group here. Rip Doyle, who just got all in here with King Queen, he's a regular. I like having him on my right. B. Shriver up under the gun right now is also a regular. The rest of the players I don't know. Some of them seem to be decent. Most of them seem to be pretty typical Nevada novice players. My chip position right now, I've got about 10 big blinds, 5 orbits. It's not too bad. Of course, I can't wait forever, but there's no reason for me to get silly either. I can wait. Definitely want to give other players a chance to make mistakes and go out so I can move up the money. And Jack's here in the cutoff. Of course, we're playing this no matter what. Whether you go open this for a min raise hoping to get shoved on or shoving the way I did, I don't think there's much of a difference. I think as I was playing, I was more in a push-fold mood, so I pushed it. The advantage, of course, to that is you're not going to have to get, the B. Shriver in the big blind could certainly have flatted me with something like King 10, and he could have had a chance to outflop me. So it erases that possibility. But it also, someone might decide to 3-bet chip something like Ace-9, which we definitely want to get all in with. In this hand, I'm surprised that Rip Doyle wouldn't have been a little bit more aggressive here to the big blind flat, especially with his chip position. He could have afforded to lose some chips to try to take the pot down. Also, Gamby is probably not wanting to gamble because of his chip position. He doesn't really want to go out having 10 bigs still. As it was, Gamby was able to check it down and hit trips on the river, make a small value bet. There's Babyface here. If he's going to raise that much, should really just ship. It doesn't really make that much of a difference, I suppose, but that would kind of show a little bit of inexperience at this place. Because experienced players will normally just ship and not put too much thought into it. And of course, B. Shriver is doing a nice cutoff raise. But he gets donk shoved on, and so I would imagine he'd just fold everything here that's not a nutted hand. Babyface could certainly have been shipping a flush draw there. I don't like Babyface flatting in the big blind at his chip stack. He should be either 3-bet pushing or folding. Around 10 bigs, you really don't want to be playing flops because, as you know, playing poker, you just don't hit that many flops. And fold equity is important. If you can win the hand straight out without having to see any cards, that is what you want to do. I like this tournament. It gives a lot of play. There's usually a lot of chips, a lot of rebuys. The add-on is twice as big as the buy-in. So when you get to the final table, it's usually a final table that can be played, as opposed to most of the players being short stacked and the blinds going up really fast, and you just gotta hope to get a hand. It's definitely a player's tournament. It's not a gambling amateur tournament. There's a lot of gambling amateurs in it, but the regular players do very well in this tournament. And I got ace jack on the button. There's probably not very many scenarios that I would fold this. I don't really want to shove into B Shriver here. Okay, well, that's right. Yeah, I don't want to play quite to that with the under the gun open from B Shriver and then a shove here from Babyface. We'll just look for a better spot. It's too likely that we're going to be up against ace queen, ace king, a pair at least. The chances the Babyface has ace 10 or less are just not very good. In other words, his range pretty much crushes us. So we'll just look for a better spot. Okay, looks like we're going to move up the money a little bit. Don't really see anything wrong with what happened there. It's just somebody's got ace queen on the button, you got ace 9 in the small blind. Sorry, it's just don't beat yourself up about it. And king 5 here in the cutoff. Just really want to wait for something better. And of course, with the raise in front, it makes it very easy to fold. But I wasn't going to open it anyway. You could shove there, but you really want to be a little bit shorter. Like if I was 5 or 6 big blinds, I think I'm going to have to shove. But with 10 big blinds, I can wait. I got 5 orbits. A little less than 5 orbits, I guess, with the blinds going up. Well, 3 orbits maybe. And Rip is going to make a small C bet on this board. With him, you can't really tell much with the small C bet here. He could have something that he's hoping to get some action with, or he could just be trying to take it down. That's the thing about regulars. They're not going to let you know what their bets mean. At least not too much. Yeah, so Rip's calling here. I'm going to make the assumption that he's willing to get his chips in the middle. And I think Gamby has probably sensed it. He's not going to push his hand. Now that's interesting. I'm surprised Rip checked back here. I don't think that I looked Rip's hand up here. I should have. But maybe he had a flush draw with ace high and he just looked him up on the river with ace high. Had a something like 7s, I guess. I don't like him flatting the flop. I can't see a hand that I would have flatted the flop with. I make the decision on the flop whether to go with it or not. Had him covered anyway. Of course, he would have been crippled. Uh, Going back to this hand, ace 9 would absolutely be a ship here. I rightly didn't when I noticed babyface limping under the gun. At this level, at this point in the tournament, that's a nutted hand. He's not limping there to fold. And so he's going to have ace 9 absolutely crushed. If he would have raised, which would have been the proper play with his range at this level, I believe, I would have folded as well. So, and of course we'll see right here, Gamby makes a small donk and gets shipped on. So babyface is nutted, and that's a good flop. Kings, aces, ace king. I'd imagine he would have called with an ace king, but ace queen, jacks, tens, you know, it's. And I think Gamby was probably on some kind of bluff, maybe a semi bluff, something like jack 9, 10 8, you know. B. Shriver was opening there on the cutoff at 2.1x, I believe. I like that. I usually do that earlier in the tournaments. I will 2.1, 2.2 exit. On this site, you can hit half pot and get roughly 2.1, 2.2. At the final table, when so many people are push fold, I just go ahead and min raise it. Since it's not going to affect anybody at this point, whether you 2 exit or 2.1 exit, in my opinion. Might as well just save that 0.1. Alright, we're getting pretty low on chips here, and gotta find a hand. And of course, here we get pretty lucky to have ace 10 in the big blind with our chip stack that we can't fold. There's no situation where we can fold this ace 10. And I believe that's exactly what happens. We managed to get all in here and win. Okay, yeah, 3-bet all in here. And get the best call we could possibly see versus king 10. So this is starting my run good here. And at the final table, you have to play well, but you need hands like that to happen for you. If you don't get those kind of hands, there's no reason to get upset, no reason to just try to determine whether you did the best you could have. And if he would have had ace jack there and I went out of the tournament, it would have sucked. But there's no way I could have blamed myself for getting in with ace 10. And of course there's no way to blame him either. He had king 10. After I ship on him for my chip stack, he's really got a call with everything. If I caught him with something like 5-4 there, he's still got a call. You can't let that many chips go, even at this stage. Now, I believe I remember this hand. I really like that. I look back on it, I really like shipping all in here. At the time, I was thinking that I didn't want to get all in with the big stacks. That I would prefer to move up the money. And I suppose that's right. The way it happened here, I get called, and and I prefer to just let him knock this player out. I'll give him my 42,000. As it happened, he had me dominated. So it actually at the time was the best play. I just don't like it in all situations. I think that shoving there and getting rid of the getting possibly rid of eights and nines, and even ace jack possibly could fold. And just getting all in with that shorty. Of course, I could have been called by the tens and went out of the tournament too. But I'm pretty sure he would have considered a call with those pair of tens, which would have had me in very bad shape. So perhaps my play at the time was right, that I believe my decision at the time was I was going to call his shove and fold to a reship by one of the bigger stacks. It ended up being the perfect play, notwithstanding the ace on the flop, but you can't think of online poker like that. He had me dominated with a pair of tens, end of story. So far at this point, Gamby's been pretty aggressive, seems to be a pretty good player. The GOAT 21 also, of course, seems to be a little on the aggressive side. Babyface hasn't shown anything that I'm particularly impressed with, but there's no real maniacs and no real total passive players at this point. It's really hard to get to the final table being passive. But so Rip limps in the small blind. I don't like that at all. You know, I think he needs to either be raising at least and possibly push fold with our chip stack. I mean, I'm going to have a very difficult time calling him from all my chips without a nutted hand. At this stage of the tournament, because I don't have more chips than him. I'm pretty much one of two players on his left and right that he can do that to, and he needs to be taking advantage of it. Whereas like right now when he's on the button, he can, shipping is a lot more likely to get him called by the GOAT. The GOAT can risk some chips a little more than I could. That said, being small blind, big blind, I'm going to call him a little lighter. Maybe he knew that. Okay, let's see what happens with this hand here. I'm definitely going to raise it. Probably at this... let's see if I'm going to go for this ship. Okay, yeah, I'm trying to decide between min raising and shipping. At this level, I can go to min raising. In fact, I probably should, but and likely what I thought of at that time is that if I min raise and get shipped on by either of these players, I'm going to have to call. So I elected to just ship, and I taken down 24,000 uncontested is a lot better actually than getting all in with something like King Queen or pair of threes. Somebody might fold a pair of threes there. So at this stage there's two bigger stacks and four of us with about the same chips. This, I'm not really in that much of a push or fold situation here. I'm wanting to let somebody else make a mistake. So I've got the chips. I can wait a little bit. I want to let other people make a mistake and move up the money. Every place is a significant pay increase. Well, we're looking for first or second, which is as much as 3 times the places we're in now. or first is as much as 7 or 8 times the place we're in now. It's important to get those little steps. Over the long run, if you play tournaments, those little steps will add up. Well, at the same time, we have to keep aware that we want to double up as much as possible. We want to get some chips if possible. If we see a situation where we can get some chips, we want to get them. So Gamby still seems to be pretty aggressive at this point. He's got the chips. He seems to know that. He's going to play them. Now with the king-queen here, this is a pretty easy min raise instead of shove, because I don't want to get all in with king-jack, queen-jack. And it's mainly because of the chip sizes. I'm just really not likely to be in that good a shape with queen-jack. And even with the 140 that I would have had, if I'd have had to fold that, I still would have had some time. And same thing with the king-jack, although it's a little bit better, I'm still probably folding to a ship, especially since I would have 160 left, and I still need to let Babyface at least get out, because he seems to be a little more passive and doing predictable things like limping under the gun. Look for Gamby to ship here, yeah. Ace-5 is just not quite good enough under the gun. If I was in the cutoff or the button, certainly open for a min raise. But it's better to just elect to fold it. Too many hands that can have me dominated and too many players behind me. And of course 8-6 on the blind here. We're not playing. The goat did a pretty big open. I don't like that. I don't like opening more than a min raise for this exact reason, because there is a big stack behind him. You know, the worst thing you could do at this point for those two guys is to lose a bunch of chips to the other big stack and put yourself in a position where you're vying for 6th place. Of course, it worked out for him. And reship here. No reason to mess around. If we flat, the goat could come in and we're 3-way. Six eight on the button is just too bad. Just not even worry about it at this point. Jack 9 again, especially with the bigger stack here behind me. Just give it up. Wait. Just wait for something. We're in a pretty good chip position right now anyway. Babyface is going to be in the blind. Let's not mess with anything. Let's move up that move up the money instead of putting ourselves in a bad spot. This, I think, definitely open for a min raise here. Of course, we're going to fold to a big stack. I'm not sure. I don't believe these big stacks would know that. And this would be a snap call with Babyface. and we get the best situation we could want. I think he's shoving there every ace, most of his kings, all of his blackjack hands, and we hold up. That's a good result. So now my number one priority is getting Rip out. I don't want to do anything to give him chips, but at the same time, I don't want to go out before he does, and I really want to get him out because he's a better player. He's a regular. I want to get three-way with these other players. And Rip is obviously not running too good, so and that's why I like to just call here. If I'm not 3-betting, it might even be better to just fold, because there's not a lot of flops I'm gonna like. And here, since Gamby checks back, the king comes off, gives me a double gutter. I'm gonna go ahead and make a bet. If he ships on me here, I'm gonna have to fold, just because of the chip situation. And of course, I miss. His flat would make me think that he has a king, and so I've got to give it up. I'm gonna call a shove from Rip here. I don't like it that much, but it doesn't happen, so I'll just fold my sixes. Especially to Gamby's big raise here, which I don't like. He needs to be doing 24,000. If I did have something like tens, or even ace, you know, it just makes it makes my reship very profitable if you're gonna open that big. It makes some players a lot less likely to call with hands that you want them to call with. For example, if he had ace-jack there, and he's making that big raise because he actually doesn't want to get called, well, he's going to get shipped on with anything better than ace-jack, and anything worse like ace-10, ace-9 very likely could fold because the raise is so big. Whereas a min raise, somebody's going to peel with ace-10. So I'm going to take a look at this hand. So fives versus threes, you know, I would not have gotten involved in that either way, being the chip stack. I might have seen a flop looking for a set. Otherwise, it's going to be check down, check fold. I do not like B Shriver shove here at all. Jack 4. As you can see, it didn't work out for him either. But a lot of regulars will shove almost 100% here. I don't like that, especially if the other player might know that. Like maybe the first few ships you could do it, and I haven't seen any other ships from him against Gamby. But even if you know, players are aware of that some players, even novice players, become aware that you're going to ship very wide. And so you're going to get called quite a bit wider. You want your range to be Of course, you want it wide, but you don't want it 70% and up. Something like 40 to 50% of your hands you can shove, so that when you get called, you'll at least have a chance. And you will get called. You will get called more in that situation than in any other situation. At least when it's you'll get called more. You'll get called by worse hands in that situation than in any other situation. So Rip is folding down. He must be running just atrociously, or he's playing other games and for some reason hasn't decided to focus much attention on this one. I would think he would have found something to ship by now. I'm still waiting on him. The worst thing that could happen to me is for him to double up. Especially being a decent player. At this point, with B. Shriver gone, I want to get three-way with these other two players. I do not want Rip in. I didn't want B. Shriver in. So I'm willing to wait. I don't want to give him chips. Of course, I'm calling here with the ace-5 if he ships. And he should ship anything here. You know, there's too much chips in there. It gets down to less than 60,000. Less than 4 bigs. Roughly 4 bigs. You just don't come back from 4 bigs very easily. Especially when everyone else has... well, I have 10 bigs and they have 20. It's very hard to come back from that. And he's folding here too, which is baffling. I mean, maybe I do want to play with him, but you know, the cards are gonna run bad. At some point, you're gonna have to gamble. You know, you don't want to fold down to nothing and then get a hand, double up, and still not have any chips. And of course, I can't play anything at this point. I have to wait on Rip to get out. If I remember correctly, yeah, Gamby 3-bets here. I don't like that. I would just flat and check it down. We know Rip has to go now. It would just be absolutely silly to fold. So for Gamby to 3-bet there, he's really got to have a nutted hand. Getting out Rip should be the priority. Even with their chip stacks. And of course they do check it down now. I imagine they both don't have anything and are kind of worried about the 3-bet. That said, since he did 3-bet there, he probably should have gone ahead and bet because of how big the side pot was. And Rip got the best scenario could hope for. He tripled up. When I was playing, that just went all over me that he was able to fold down that low and triple up. And if the goat here is a thinking player, which looking back on it, there's no reason to think he wasn't a thinking player. A 3-bet there would have been done 80% of the time, and that's why I don't like my open there with the Queen Jack, because I can't get all in. You know, I can't do anything at that point. Rip still has a low enough chip stack that I gotta wait on him. That's called ICM caged, where even if I have aces there, it's it's probably not the right decision to get all in, because I can go out and lose the bump up. Of course, I'm going in with aces there, but there's just not very many hands that I would go in, even queens. Queens I would raise and then fold, just like the queen jack there. And so Rip, now I have to play like I'm in last place. He's managed to run good and get right back into contention. If if he was still around 120,000, I'd definitely fold this Jack 10. But at this point, I've got to gamble a little bit. It's somewhat cheap. I don't want to ship, of course, but I get to look at a flop for 22,000 for a chance to win 108. It's time to go ahead and take a look at a flop. I hit the best possible flop I could, Jack high. I'm not folding. I'm going to go ahead and go for the check raise. Because I'm not folding, there's no reason to ship, because I'm going to get called by all better. Give him a chance to put some money in before I ship. And that's exactly what happens. And from this point, I don't believe that I ever look back. I just... At this point, I'm going to get a lot more aggressive, too. There's not going to be any more waiting around, for sure. Now I'm in a chip position where I can attack, and that's what I'm going to do. I definitely look for me to raise this. I get 3-bet by the goat. So I'll go ahead and fold it. Okay, now here's another pivotal hand. As you can see, oh nope, this is not the pivotal hand. Should be coming up. But so my newfound chips and aggression hasn't been working too well so far. But shouldn't deter me. I should still stay aggressive. I would definitely like to go ahead and raise the king 5 here, but I believe I thought that my king was probably good anyway, so I just go ahead and check it down. At this point on the river, he's going to call me with an ace, so there's no reason to bet, and unfortunately he hit a deuce. Definitely going to call me with that deuce. Pre-flop I could have raised him, I believe. But of course, hindsight that he had king deuce might be clouding my view there. Like a little better hand to attack him with, especially since I'd already attacked him once. Ten deuce just not good enough. So we've all kind of evened out in chips here. Makes for a really good game. I play a lot of cash games where we're shorthanded like this, so I believe that I would have the advantage over these players. Rip plays cash, but I don't see him sit in a lot of short games. But again, he's the player I would least like to get heads up with. And it looks like he got a little out of line there and damaged himself. I would expect a player like Gamby to play things a little cagey, trying to limp his good hands, stuff like that. Jack 9, I'm just going to elect to fold, especially since the goat has shown he's willing to 3-bet me. Didn't get a chance to get to that spot anyway. Jack 9 on the button. I'm going to be opening this. You know, I'm not a short stack to these guys anymore. They do have to worry about me. So they can't shove me light for sure. Now just completely whiff this flop. I like to just check. I'm not sure if that would be the proper play or not, but it's pretty close. I could c-bet him, but you know, getting called, I could get called really wide there. Luckily I hit a 9 on the river. And he's probably not going to get me to fold there. If he had better than that, he would have bet by now. And his bet was absolutely terrible there, betting his bottom pair. He needs to be check calling. Give me a chance to bluff, finally. He could pick it off. I'm not going to be calling with anything less than 5s, more than likely. Okay, now here's the pivotal hand I finally get to play against Rip. I raise the ace-5 under the gun, and he flats on the big blind. I completely whiff, but unlike the last hand, I have ace-high, which is still likely to be good in this spot. And either way, he's going to need a hand here. So I go ahead for the c-bet. I don't want to make it any bigger than I have to. I want to make it big enough to look like he's got to commit his chips. So I hit the 5 on the turn and elect to check back because he flatted. I'm hoping to get a free showdown and beat most of his hands. So my first inclination is to fold here, but at this stage, you don't really want to make a decision like this so quickly. It's just like, oh my god, all I have is a pair of 5s, and I got shipped on, and it's going to cost me more than half my stack. Oh my god, I got to fold. My first thought was to fold, but before I folded, I needed to think about it. You know, what hands does he have here? He shipped really, really fast on that river. So that makes me think he doesn't have a 10 or a runner flush, because in that case you really got to think about it a little bit. You just made your hand on the river. You got to think. A 10 is probably going to have wanted to check down the river. So when it changes on the river, you don't just auto ship. A jack, I suppose he could have shipped a jack on the river, and hoping that I would call it, where he would have already been planning that ship, already planning to get it in. At any case here, has already planned to get his hand in on the river. When I check the turn, it's a decision he made when I checked the turn. So that leaves a lot of air, hands that he can only win if I fold. And I'm not always going to be right here. He's going to have jacks and a nutted hand, something he has played cagey. He's going to have that every once in a while, but a lot of times he's going to have air. Something like king queen, although I would hope he would have shoved that. And another thing, if he'd hit a jack and maybe even a 10, it's likely he would have wanted to settle that on the flop. So after thinking about that, I thought that there was a good enough chance that I had the best hand that I needed to risk my chips at this point. Uh, if I lost, I wouldn't be out, but I would be crippled. But the chance was good enough that I decided to take it. And also, there's the added bonus that I get to knock Rip out. And if Rip is not there, I believe that I had a very, very good shot of. I had a much better shot of winning this tournament than if he were in. So far, both of these players have shown some pretty decent aggression. Now, I need to notice here that Gamby limped in, so now he's suddenly not so aggressive here, getting down to the final three. More than likely, that shows little inexperience at this situation, little less experience playing very short-handed. And I'm definitely taking notice of that by this point. I'm definitely taking notice of that he has slowed down his aggression. The goat seems to be playing very ABC at minimum, perhaps even a little better than that. Look for me to be really aggressive at this point. I got a chip lead. I got chips to spare. I'm gonna spare them. I'm gonna make these guys come back at me. Now Gamby donks out here half pot, and I've got nothing but a gut shot pretty much. I'll just fold it. Typically, I'm going to be aggressive against donk bets like that, but I don't believe that was a good spot. The ace-9 I would have played there. Not sure how I would have played it, but didn't have that situation. Didn't have to worry about it. I don't like shipping here. It worked out for me. I think at the time, see, goat's in bottom place anyway, so it's going to be hard for him to 3-bet something that he wouldn't have called with. But I think the reason I shipped it on him is because I didn't want to get 3-bet, and he had shown that he was willing to 3-bet me. So perhaps it was a proper play anyway. Because I don't want to have to fold to a king-jack 3-bet, for example. And here's Gamby limping on the button, which I'm very much taking notice that he has gone passive. I really want to get heads up with him if he's going to play passive, if he's going to limp buttons. I really want to get heads up with him. So I just limp the queen 10 in the small blind here and make a middle pair. An ace isn't that likely for Gamby. It's possible some people can limp their aces on the button, but it's just not that likely. And of course, he had king queen, and if he would have raised that, he would have settled that hand before I had a chance to make something. And I was not folding that 10 on the river. I was going to call most bets. I might have folded to a shove, but I was not going to fold to much else. I was not going to bet it either because he would call me with better, but not much worse. So, running, not getting any hands here for a couple orbits. Now, a call again. See, I'm going to see a flop with my 8-9 if he's going to limp on the button. Just completely whiffed, so I give up, but, you know, it's definitely worth seeing a flop. Now, he's not going to be able to limp all his hands for long. I will be raising him pretty soon. And by this point, I'm definitely thinking about it. That's something that I can exploit. I don't have much. I don't have much looks against the goat here. He definitely seems to be playing a more solid game at this point. I get lucky with the walk with 7-5 here. Gamby's managed to take the chip lead. I'm not really worried about that. Of course, I definitely want to get heads up with him, even if I have a chip disadvantage. You just really want to raise your buttons. Raise all your buttons. Getting folds is just too important, and you don't want to give any reads off. And flatting on the button will give reads off. You cannot flat all your strong hands without also flatting a lot of weak hands. And there's a lot more weak hands than there are strong hands. And strong hands, why would you want to flat anyway? So that leaves the tendency for the flats on the button to be weak. I believe this is where I decide that I've had enough, and I'm going to attack it. An ace is pretty good anyway, probably better than his range. I hate that flop. He's likely to have hit something. I want to make my bet as small as possible without just being insanely weak. And he snaps fold, so he must have had something like 6-7, you know, something that just completely whiffed. Possibly an underpair. And I'm going to start attacking Gamby here. A7 is pretty good anyway. He's made a monster raise here. There's no reason to have raised that much, and that also makes it a little better to attack because there's more money to win. If he would have made that raise somewhere in the 50,000 range, wouldn't have changed my opinion of his range. Just the simple fact that there was more money made the 3-bet more profitable. Now, of course, I have A7, but I'm not in position, and I don't want to 3-bet him twice in a row. I've got the chips here to make the call, and I get the best possible outcome I possibly could have gotten. I was expecting a pair. I was expecting a flip, ace jack, ace 10. Just hoping I wasn't up against ace king, ace queen, which he's not going to have a lot of the time. All right, and just got the best possible outcome, of course, that I could have gotten. And now I'm heads up with the opponent that I wanted to be heads up with. And check my heads up video for the remainder of this match. It's not. There are some hands played here. It's not a short heads up match by any means. Thanks a lot for watching.